Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Welcome everyone to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone, and today we're going to be talking about mental health crisis. And I have two special guests who came to my event on November 1st at the World Energy Healers Holistic Wellness event. And, they spoke about how, what is the core underlining issue that could potentially help a lot of people. And I brought them back on the show because they created what is called Cognomovement. And it's a groundbreaking system that helps people rewire their energetic and neurological pattern to transform how they think, feel, and live. And I just thought it was really, really important to have them back on where they can really go a little bit deeper into the program and what it is, how it works, and how it's helping a lot of people around the world. So welcome, Liz Larson and Bill McKenna. So good to have you back and see you again.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So Liz, we can start with you. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on to Bill and then kind of like put it all together.
So I'm Liz Larson. I live in Southern Oregon. Something interesting to know about Bill and I, we don't live in the same state, but created this together. And I'll just give you briefly my why. My why was my parents both had neurological diseases that ended their lives. And they got these neurological diseases at the same time. And they were super, super healthy people. No medication, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes, not even Western medicine. So my why was to find out what could possibly be done to change the trajectory of that for people. And it turns out there's so many things that impact the brain and the nervous system as a whole. And so this is the thing that Bill and I discovered, is that the whole system has to be addressed and adjusted, reorganized, not just the one thing that most people look at, the brain. And so that led me to meet Bill. And then the minute we met, from that point on, there have been constant conversations about how to create real and lasting change. I think we both were looking for that specifically. Lots of things create change, but do they last over time?
Right.
Do they build on each other? And do they create an immediate change that then the body builds on that? And so that's what we were looking for. So I'll pass it over to Bill.
Well, everything Liz said, that's absolutely true. And I guess the really exciting thing that I think about our work is, number one, that it's highly effective, especially in things that seem like there's no other possibility. They seem like there's no way you can get a change. And over the course of the past decade, we have, on a weekly basis, there has been discovery after discovery that has come up that has allowed us to help people with the impossible. It started off with basic, feelings of being stuck, emotionally or in life, and then cravings. People was like, there's no chance that I could ever get over, whatever my craving was. And that all changed. And then it was all kinds of things with creating basically almost a super brain, a little hyperconnectivity in the brain, and having, really high levels of performance. So it's gone all the way from the problem state and resolving big problems to elevating somebody to superhuman type performance. So wherever somebody is on the spectrum of their life, we find that we have a solution because we're dealing with it at the causal level.
I love that. And at the causal level, and I just have this in mind because I don't want to lose it. It's at the subconscious level, correct? When you say at the causal level, it's on a subconscious where they don't even know that it's happening.
Exactly. But what here's the interesting thing, and is that you could change out the word subconscious for nervous system. I never knew this. Like all the studying that we did, about everything, I didn't know really what the subconscious was or where it was within the physical body. But it turns out that the subconscious
Interesting.
is the nervous system. Like, you think about, how does the subconscious operate? It's super simple. How does it control my life? Well, I got a feeling. I got a feeling. It comes down to that. I got a feeling. And that feeling might be the subconscious of like, I can do it or I can't do it. But it starts with a feeling, and then we think thoughts equal to the feeling, and then we act according to what I think and feel. And so
Very interesting.
So the feeling, right, if you get down to real basics, is what causes my feeling or my reaction? It's my nervous system.
If I can add just a little bit to that, it's even deeper than that. So that is what causes what we think and how we feel about it and what we believe. Our beliefs are this thing Bill's talking about, that feeling, and the brain just interprets the feeling. And it's based on threat assessment. Is that a threat? Does my feeling tell me, get out of the way of the lion right now, get up the tree and get safe? Or does it tell me, no big deal? But if we think about the nervous system, it literally takes in all the information through our eyes, through our ears, through our smell, through our taste,
Five senses,
through our skin, and our field is reaching out around our body. Where are we in time and space? We have to have this buffer that is also our nervous system. So it takes in all the information. Then that limbic system, part of our brain and body, judges, is this a threat or not? And then it stores that information. And then the next time something similar comes up, it pulls up that same information, matches it, and says, yes, it's a threat, even though it may have nothing to do with the first time. So it handles all of the input of our information and all of our output of information. How do we react? And the important part of knowing this is that you can change that. The subconscious is this big nebulous thing that you can't change, and we don't know where it is. I mean, can you touch yours? If you were to touch yours, right. You can't. But if you know what the system is, and it's a very, in some ways, mechanical system, you know how it does what it does, then you have the ability to reorganize it, to change it, to make it more resourceful.
Because we think in pictures, right? So like you just mentioned, we don't know what the mind looks like, right? We know what the brain looks like, know what the heart looks like. We know what the nervous system looks like, but we don't know what the mind looks like. So that, understanding that part.
Yeah, we think in pictures, that's true, but we actually think more in sensation. There's more of a sensation than a thought. And people are like, that doesn't make sense because I think in my head. But the head is interpreting what's going on in the body, and I can prove it. So imagine that a lion walks in your room right now. Right now. Do you have time to let your brain decide, is that a threat? I mean, do you have the seconds that it takes to go, oh, that's a cute lion. I wonder if it'll bite me. You don't. What happens is all of a sudden, we all know the sensation in our body. A clenching sensation, a feeling that sends to the brain, run now, figure it out later. Now, it could have been a fake lion, but in that moment, you don't know. In the moment, your limbic system must react right now. What we're not aware of is we're doing the same thing to videos that we watch.
Same reaction we're getting from videos.
Lion, right? And then a few seconds later, oh no, that wasn't a lion. Lion. Oh, that wasn't a lion. And then the next person that comes in and talks to you, lion. Oh, wait, no, that was just my husband. And so you can see how the nervous system starts to get very disorganized around what's a threat and what's not a threat. And it's my opinion that that's what we're living in right now. That's why we are in such a disorganized feeling state and thinking state.
Wow. And I remember, Bill, you mentioning about looking, Liz, you just held the phone, so it just brought back when you were speaking about when we're looking down at the phone constantly, right? Tell us about that again. Point that out to us.
Well, there is something that
The study, I think you brought a study, if I remember correct. Can you talk about that?
exactly. In 2007, there was the introduction of the iPhone. This was the first real smartphone. Before that, there were Blackberries and stuff like that. But the iPhone came out in 2007, and there's a study done, and they accessed all of the records from the World Health Organization and the CDC. So all the data came from the CDC and the World Health Organization from 2007 to 2025. And the study that using their data was around the diagnoses of anxiety and depression. And from 2007 to 2025, the angle of diagnoses is like this. It's like a perfectly ascending curve. Now, the number of hours there's also correlated with this. There's a study done of the number of hours per person per day in the United States, and these were all from the United States. This is domestic United States data, but this is from the cell phone industry for smart devices. How many hours per day is per person we're spending on the smart devices? So cumulative.
Yes.
Exact match.
Wow.
The number of hours per day that everybody's spending on smart devices in the population matched perfectly the diagnoses of anxiety and depression. Now, the reason for this, though, is not what people think. The reason for this is extraordinarily simple. And that is something that has been known since the beginning of time. Nobody ever thought about this. It is looking down. Physically, when we look at our phone, what do? We all put it right here. We put it right in the center, and we look down at it. Your eyeballs are physically down. Well, we access the information from the National Institutes of Health, studies about what happens when you look down. When you look down, even a child knows the person's probably disconnected or unhappy. Even a child knows that. But what we know now from National Institutes of Health is that when you look down, it shuts off your dopamine, it shuts off your oxytocin. The oxytocin is the connection, that love molecule. And it accesses this part of the brain back here. Your predominant access is down in these parts of the brain that are associated with disconnecting from other people. We currently, if anybody in the United States knows that there is such a disconnection now. Everybody feels disconnected from each other. All the kids are in their basement playing video games and not even interfacing. Drinking, back in my day, you would go out and drink. You'd go to bars or whatever, and you'd meet other young kids, and you'd all drink together and, see what happens, something bad, bad decisions, but that's what you did. You're socialized. Now they're not drinking as much. It's so interesting because there's a disconnection. They're not socializing.
So there's a link between mental health crisis and the socialization aspect.
Exactly.
And we're saying, what's the cause? What could be the cause? And it's 1 out of 5. Statistics are showing 1 out of 5, which is, astronomical, right? I have in my family, there's 5, but there's 5 of us siblings. So one of us, just to think of that is pointing right back to what could really be the cause. And it is the disconnection, because we grew up thousands of years ago, the families got together, right? No one's getting together. After the pandemic was even worse. Did we see the numbers go up after the pandemic, correct?
Yeah, actually interesting. That's interesting because it was like this, and then there was this little, even at the pandemic, it went like that. And all of it, by the way, all of it went like that. It was not just the diagnoses, but also the number of hours per person per day. And the amazing thing about this is that if you look, because everywhere you look, just like this accesses this part of the brain right here, predominant, there's more going on, but I'm, summarizing it.
Sure.
When you look up, it accesses this part of the brain, predominant. And this is your executive function, right? Over here, your higher thought, your compassion, all of these other things up here. So everywhere you look is a different part of the brain. Now, what's causing this anxiety and depression is the fact that if you look at this phone, it's this much. My eyes don't move. They move this much. They're not moving way over here, way over here. This, I look over here and it's this part of the brain. I look over here and it's this part of the brain. So it's so fixed and so small for that many hours a day. Of course, it's like a bicep. You're exercising a neurological circuit over and over and over again. So it's really stupid.
And you're losing using the peripheral part of your eyes, right? Looking up or sideways, left and right. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So that means it's not functioning correctly anymore.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, we become very hyper-focused on our feelings, because that eyes down position connects with the kinesthetic part of the body. Think about it. If you have a paper cut, you immediately have to look. You had a paper cut. You got to look, right?
Yes.
You got to connect with the physical. And it also takes you very internal, like Bill said, disconnected. When we're in this very singular eyes down position, we're connected with our internal. It goes right into how we feel, the core of who we are.
Yes.
And then the brain doesn't have really any other way to interpret anything other than through the kinesthetic access. So we're not sitting around doing this. If we're sitting around doing this, this is the international sign for what?
Creative
thinking. Yeah. Think. Or I win, right? Or I'm in praise and worship, right? All of those upper feelings, that higher, like Bill said, executive function.
Yes.
It's in this area. We spend no time. We also don't access the left or the right part of the brain, the extremes of it that have other opinions. So we get one opinion, our feeling body, our kinesthetic, and our internal. And so, of course, it's made us disconnected, but it also makes us a bit dumber, because we just don't have
correct
and all the other perspectives that our own system can provide. So of course, now if you're in an echo chamber of your own physical body, there's this deeper and deeper fall into depression, just disorganization.
You become introverted, in a sense.
Yeah, disconnected. I'm the only person in the world who feels like this. No one understands me. Also, you don't understand anybody else.
Right.
And that field that we were talking about, it extends for most people 6 to 8 feet around the body. From other people, it's much bigger, and at other times it's much bigger. But it is our nervous system reaching into the world. Like, where are we? What's here? What do things taste, smell like out there? Am I going to hit the wall? Is there something coming at me? Right? So that begins to shrink as well. We're not
you're by yourself.
Yeah, and we kind of get weird. I mean, if we notice our society's gotten a little weird. We have weird ideas because we only have this one singular perspective and opinion. But I can see by your last name, you're Italian. Yeah. And in most Italian families in the last century, we would sit around and you would be talking, and, Nona over here shouting about something, and over there in that corner, they're arguing, and your head's on a swivel. And if you think about little kids, they're googly-eyed. They're everywhere. They're looking at this. They're touching that. They're experiencing life. We get to where now we're experiencing this. And so we get a little weird. Our perspectives get very warped around whatever's coming out of that screen. And so Bill and I discovered that it was the phone and phone viewing, depression, and also other mental diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, and other things. They all match exactly to the trajectory of phone and phone use.
That is from the CDC and the WHO, combined other degenerative brain diseases, all the ones that Liz mentioned. I mean, it's like unbelievable. And everybody knows this, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, anxiety, depression. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that, man, it didn't seem like this was really going on, back in the day. I'm older, but I tell you what, it wasn't going on like this back in the day.
They probably still thinking, oh, it's genes and it's inherited, and not making the connection that it's actually something that we're using that is contributing to the increase in population of people having it sooner, right? Sooner than later. Like I'm hearing like younger kids are younger kids, but people in their 30s and 40s are experiencing these same symptoms that we're supposed to be experiencing in 60s and 70 at the age of 60 or 70. So it makes a lot of sense how much, being on the phone and looking down creates not only internal issues, but also a lot of, like you mentioned, depression and self-confidence goes down because they're comparing to what they see to themselves, because they can compare it to anybody else, but what's on the phone.
Yeah.
So it's affecting their whole being, right? Liz, you mentioned earlier, it's not just one part of us. Can you go into that a little bit deeper?
Yeah. So specifically about that it's affecting the spirituality and emotional and all of that. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So all of that, this is the interesting part. People think spirituality is something outside of us.
It's religion. It's not.
It is, or it's religion. Yeah. It is not. This is our big event every year. Bill and I have an event called Cognoscious, and this is what it's about. It's about reorganizing the system to have a greater and greater perspective on everything. The better you can see, the more you literally can see. The more parts of your brain that you access, the more of the light spectrum you can access. So what's walking through the corner of your eye over here that you have to look and then it's gone, now you can see. So those things are very interesting. But what's more interesting than that is that your consciousness level goes up and up and up. The more control you have over this nervous system, the more that you can delete the old patterns, like everything's a lion, or that anger from the time I was a child, or my genetic history around things like, for example, slavery in some cases, poverty in other cases, illness in other cases. The more that we can update that system, the greater and greater our consciousness level is, awareness. So if I am no longer reacting to that thing my mom said when I was 4, now I can hear what my husband's actually saying to me in the present, right? In the
Instead
past,
of reacting immediately, you're taking the time to process it and respond.
yeah.
Exactly.
So before, I would pull what my mom said when I was 4 into this conversation and place meaning on that, right?
Right.
So with everybody with their eyes down and looking at their phone, they're taking all of the things that everyone ever said in their life, anything that was a threat, and applying it to whatever's happening right here. And that's minute to minute to minute. It's something new, something new, something new, something new, something new, right? So we start to get ADHD because we can't think longer than a minute. This has trained us. And our whole past is addressing what's happening here. What my mom said when I was 4, that head injury I had when I was 10, it all makes this about me and in the now, right? My consciousness, my awareness shrinks to that. So when we're able to delete what happened in the past, open our vision at the same time, have full access to the brain, the nervous system calms, because guess what? I'm safe. I can see what's going on around me. I can feel into the field. That field becomes much greater. I can address life with compassion, with love, which then guess what happens? Your blood pressure goes down. Your blood sugar goes down. Your body rests. You sleep. Now your children, you have actually the capacity to
Right.
see them, to love them. That book you want to read, you have the capacity to take it in, right? That relationship you have, you now see them for what they are in the present time. So it also, strangely, affects how we walk, how we move, how flexible we are, right? How prone we are to injury or falling, how likely we are to crash our car. All of those things have to do with this singular system that handles that for us. But the problem is we're mostly running on autopilot in a normal situation.
Yes.
And now this dictates all of it, right? So it's an external source dictating what we think, feel, know, believe.
It's making decisions for us, basically.
Yeah.
And
And
when
you
we
don't have the capacity to know that because you're not actually seeing the outside world.
and so our reality is somewhat based on what we see on this phone that is programming our system.
Yeah. Your
And so
reality,
people- yeah.
your reality in general is based on what your nervous system allows you to see that it is. So your reality is shaped by every experience you've had and every experience you've had by the people before. Once you update that, so talk about phone, this gets an update, every couple of months.
Right.
Our systems are no different. If we can update to present again and again and again, then we have the capacity to see a reality that does exist, but was hidden from us in every minute. Your reality can change in a second once your nervous system is updated, because otherwise it really does keep you about here. Once that's open, reality changes completely. We have story after story about that, Bill. That might be fun to tell a reality shifting story.
Oh gosh, there it doesn't even seem really possible, that you could do an exercise and your reality would actually change. But Cognomovement was actually the very, very first session of Cognomovement that ever happened. Was just an idea that we tried out, and we created a ball with different colors on it, and a friend of mine had asked before a ride to the airport, and I said, well, got this new idea, would you be my guinea pig here? And so I said, I drove there to pick him up for the airport. And it was like, we only got 20 minutes. And I'm like, all right, catch this ball and say the color. But I want you to think of the biggest problem in your life. And I started catching the ball with him, throwing it to him, and he's catching it. And I just stay in the problem. And I didn't even ask him what the problem was. I was like, just the biggest problem in your life. Throwing the ball for a few minutes, and he's saying the color. And then he said, it was 2 minutes in, and he said, my belly button is hot. And he's sweating profusely. And, I'm dry as a whistle. And as you can see, this is a little cotton. This is a cotton ball. It's not like but he is hotter than heck. But it's the weirdest thing. It's his belly button. It's like, I've never heard of a hot belly button in my life. But anyway, it's like, that's made me laugh. But a couple minutes later, he was like, I'm having a heart attack. I said, I knew he wasn't. So I was like, just keep going. You're not having, keep going. He's like, oh, my heart. And a couple minutes later, he started choking. He was like, I can't breathe. And I keep going. I said, how's your heart? And he's like, my heart's fine. It's like, it's like a couple minutes later,
funny, but it's not.
His head started hurting. And then at the top of his head, and whoosh, it was gone. And I was like, and he was like, really, it was less than 20 minutes. We got in the car, went off to the airport. We're on the way to the airport. And he's like, I don't know what happened. I can't describe what that thing was that happened. It was the weirdest experience. And then he said, I can't feel it anymore. I can't feel it. Yeah. I can't connect. And anyway, 6 months passed. Him and his wife came over to the house, and there we were in the front yard. And the wife was talking about them buying these houses in Utah that were rented, and they put down this minimal amount of money, and the thing was cash flow positive. And they were able to take a huge chunk of money every month and pay off the mortgage for these houses they bought, which is unheard of in the state of California. Impossible, even at 50% down, to be able to actually excess beyond maintenance, beyond everything, taxes, and paying stuff off. It's like confusing. So, but it was happening. And anyway, and she said, yeah. And, we started a bee business, and that's making a bunch of money, and we're paying off our regular house here in San Diego. And they said, oh yeah. And my friend also took part of the property in San Diego that he had, and he made it into a rental. Like he had this part, and he made it into a rental, like a 1-bedroom rental. Mm-hmm. And he was making money on that, and they were paying off the house in California. And his wife goes, these people, I'm going to say, I've known them all my life since I was 18, and I'm going to go with, there's some certain people that are really prosperity conscious, and other people that are kind of poverty conscious, it's just where they're just different. Mm-hmm. They had the poverty kind of consciousness thing going on. Anyway, bottom line is, the wife says, all of this happened right after that thing you did with the ball, and I was like, well, what the heck was that? I don't even know what we did. What was it that we worked on? And my friend was like, oh, damn, I'm coming up on retirement age, and my retirement plan was to buy a trailer, move out to the desert, and it would be like a free plot of land in the desert in California called homesteading, and it's like real, like, whiskey and just tumbleweeds and screen doors and banging in the wind, just, not anyway, that kind of lifestyle. And I was like, oh my God, that was your plan. Anyway, bottom line is now, here we are, Liz and myself, a decade later, and, he's retired, got more money than he can spend every month. his assets have gone way beyond his wildest dreams. And it was all possible because that old subconscious pattern, which was his nervous system, had a message. Not for you, my friend, not for you. And then it's gone, and it's like,
you updated his nervous system, basically.
He got an upgrade.
He got an update. So, it's amazing how you can see results when you begin to ask questions, right? Like, and wondering, like, why is this happening? Do I really want this in my life? That's another thing. I think that we're so focused on this phone that we forgot to ask questions like, is this really true? Does this really apply to me? Right? Because a lot of that is, I always say we have different fingerprints for a reason, right? We're very unique. Each and every one of us bring different gifts to this world. But if we're closed-minded, meaning we accept what we see and we don't ask any questions, we just say, well, that's the way it is. We kind of really cheat ourselves from experiencing, like your friend. I mean, I don't think he even thought that it was going to go down this path where, instead of a trailer, he's got properties everywhere. And it's not about the material things. It's about the freedom that he, first of all, releasing whatever was holding him back all his life, because obviously he was older at that point, right? Your age. So all his life, he experienced the limitation that he probably cannot have those things. And here you are just saying, hey, let's do this and see what happens, from an experimental base to like, wow, what a difference, right?
Yeah, and here's the beauty of it is that, not one word spoken, and not one word of trying to, you really need to think about prosperity. There's these rental properties you could buy, and no, not word one about
the system knew what to do. The system knew what to do.
It ran the pattern that his body used to create that belief system. Our bodies have a pattern, just like a computer, that it uses, and it's a well-worn rut over time, that it uses to run a belief system. And then it will actually seek things that match it, that validate. See, it's true, it's true, it's true, it's true. And so in 20 minutes, they changed that setting, right? They changed the pattern. We call it getting out of the ditch and onto the curb. So the nervous system no longer had that input, that data input. It now had a look at the whole system. And in 20 minutes, like Bill said, he didn't have new education. He didn't have talk therapy. They did not really address the mind. They addressed the feeling associated with that belief, the physical sensation. He said, think about the biggest problem in your life and then focus on the feeling. And that feeling moved through the body in exactly the way that his nervous system handled that pattern. Once it's gone, reality changed. His reality changed. I'm poor 1 minute, I'm going to live in the desert. 2, wow, look at all these things I can do. And then his body also had the energy to act, because that one neural pattern that's gobbling all the energy. This is true. I'm going to live in the desert. I don't have any money. I'm going to fail. Literally gobbles down all the energy. The minute that you saw Bill go up the head and out, the minute that was changed, the energy that pattern was using flooded the body. He felt different. I don't know what happened. A lot of people will say, is this real life? I feel like a different person. And you literally are a different person. The way your energy is being used in your body is now for healing, for thinking, for all of that executive brain matter up there, for feeling other things like love and excitement and, compassion, those kinds of things. The body will literally start to use the energy more resourcefully. And then the life becomes more resourceful. It's, a 1-to-1 correlation. We've seen it again and again and again and again. 20 minutes, no psychotherapy, the body shifts out of the pattern and the person is on a new trajectory. Their life is different.
So I don't know if you guys heard of Dr. Nelson. He did the emotion code,
Yeah.
created the emotion code. And I remember when I certified in that. And I remember, one of the things he showed us was how, our events can cause these block energies in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And until they're released, we're always going to feel out of alignment, basically, is the best way I can put it, right? Because you want something, you know how to do it, you know how to lose weight, but it's just not happening, right? It's like you've read about it, you've tried so many things. Why is it not happening? And it brings back to, is it really me that I can't do this? Right. But when you start to examine what the way you guys are mentioning it and allowing the system to figure it out by itself, without asking questions, why is it really necessary? What happened? Right. We don't need to get into the history or the reasons why, but just allowing your system to process it out, whatever that is preventing you from losing weight or from moving to the next level in your life, wherever you want to be. There's something that's keeping you stuck in the nervous system. And the process that you guys created is a very simple process to move forward into the reality that you're really meant to be in, right? Because we're being held until we do that inner work, because I call this inner work, opening ourselves to receive and process things that are holding us back. And we don't even have to know what, basically, obviously, from your movement. Bill, I remember when we met, you mentioned about doing an exercise with the pen. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, well, the exercise, we have these different balls that we use, but you could actually do it with a pen as well. And the exercise, quite simply, is to begin to access different parts of your brain. So it's important to understand that your eyeballs, your brain, and your spinal cord are one neurological system. And this is the movable part directly connected to the brain. So if I look down and I'm accessing that sad, disconnected part, and if I'm looking up, I'm accessing those higher levels of thought, compassion, love, new ideas. And what we're going to do simply is begin to get the brain to access different parts of the brain. So if you had two hands, let's say on a pen, and you moved it from left to right, from low to high, while, for example, you were focused on whatever, I want to know how to tune my carburetor. I'm having a problem with my carburetor. I'm having a problem with my husband. I'm having, whatever. Doesn't matter what it is.
Intentionally. So make an intention before doing the exercise.
Yeah. And you'll find that the feeling in your body will start changing and moving, and new ideas will come into play. Early on, Cognomovement, you mentioned weight and diets, weight, and very early on, we discovered that you can actually get rid of a craving without willpower. It's the absolute opposite of what everybody ever thought. It's like,
tell me more.
oh my gosh. Well, you're going to love this.
I'm ready.
Yeah. So the thing about what's your favorite food? What is it that you crave that you're like, oh my gosh, I
Chocolate.
eat it. Is that it for you?
I love it. Yeah.
You love it. How many times a day do you eat it?
Oh, you really want me to say?
No, okay, don't say it. You don't have to. It doesn't matter. It can be confidential.
Every night, got to have a little piece of chocolate.
Okay, all right. So what I'm going to say here, first of all, is you have to actually be clear. What I mean by that is that, do you really want to get rid of chocolate? If you're, you might say, you know what? Thank you so much. I know you can get rid of it, but I don't want to do that because I love it and it's part of my joy of life. This exercise that I'm about to talk about, Liz Larson actually she was witnessing a craving for chocolate chip cookies. There's a guy that he came on. We do free Cognomovement hours, and we actually have something called a World Cognomovement Day, which Liz is going to talk about in a minute. World Cognomovement Day, we actually walk people through this exercise. You're going to want to do it. Type in World Cognomovement Day, and you'll see we walk you through the exercise for cravings. So anyway, this craving exercise that we talk about is where you enjoy the chocolate. Imagine that. Getting rid of chocolate by enjoying chocolate. And you enjoy the chocolate, and we walk you through some very specific physical exercises. And then what happens is the not only does the craving come down, but you got to be careful because it loses its taste. It's like, oh my gosh, it just tastes like grease now. Liz watched this chocolate chip session and she was bummed out because her favorite chocolate chip cookies, she was like, it's cardboard. It doesn't taste good.
I didn't even do the session. I was watching it. It was in early days of doing stuff on Zoom, sessions on Zoom. And I was carefully watching the client that Bill was working with. And it wasn't until 6 months later, because at that point I couldn't keep chocolate chip cookies in my house. I'd be eating them. I'd find a reason. It was like they called my name. About 6 months later, my daughter was like, hey, let's try this cookie place. It's amazing. So my daughter said, hey, so it's crumble cookie, by the way. It's these huge cookies, 5 pounds each, I think,
Yes.
We went into the store and it smelled amazing. And they're exactly the kind of cookies, I would like. So we bought them and we're in the car and I tasted and it tasted like cardboard. It smelled good, looked beautiful, tasted like cardboard. And at that point, I'm like, these just aren't any good. My daughter's like, you're out of your mind. These are amazing. About another 6 months later, I had another opportunity to have chocolate chip cookies and realized it didn't taste like anything. And then I remembered the session. I'm like, oh, I didn't do the session, but I got whammied by a Cognomovement session. And so what we know is that the system will create a driver towards a thing. And there's a reason for it. It's usually the first time you had that thing, something that felt like good, like love or positive or connection was going on. Now the system's like, oh, this is a very, very good thing. But it'll create a driver to try to have that again and again. We had a person who had this with red wine. There was connection. So he craved the connection and tried to do it through red wine. So one of our practitioners, she's from Great Britain, and so they call it pudding, but it's desserts, and chocolate was her thing. And she said she'd open the fridge and it was full of these puddings, chocolate desserts. And, it was, kind of damaging her health, and she knew it wasn't good for her. But beyond that, it was just, it's probably not good for me. So she did her session, and these are 20-minute sessions. They're short.
Right.
And after that night, she ate dinner, and her spouse was looking at her like, who is this person? Because before that, she would scarf down dinner as fast as she could to get to the dessert. There was no enjoyment. There was no conversation. It was the scarfing and then dessert. Well, what changed in her life was only everything. Her health got better. Of course, she lost weight. But there was not a driver, a singular fixation on getting to that dessert. And she and her partner said it changed their relationship dramatically, changed everything.
Let's talk about, we have a few minutes left. Let's talk about the event and what's on your website that people can go check out.
A World Cognomovement Day.
Yes, yes.
Okay, World Cognomovement Day, we have once a year. It's our big Cognomovement Super Bowl party. It's a free event. It's on YouTube, and we'll share the links with you. And it's 7 hours of our practitioners and Bill and myself coming on and leading real Cognomovement sessions on a wide range of topics. Every year it's different. And every year our practitioners share their personal stories and how the work has impacted them and their clients. And then they'll give a session around that topic. So it is really 7 hours of change. A person could change their whole life with one of those sessions. Imagine what 7 will do.
Beautiful, beautiful. And they can find that on your website.
No, actually, that is on YouTube. Cognomovement has its own YouTube channel. There's hundreds of videos. World Cognomovement Day is there, and we'll provide the link to your audience.
Okay, beautiful.
World Cogno Day 2026.
I highly recommend it because, you know, when you make these small changes, they can have these big impacts and you know, on our lives. And you've done it, and you've seen changes after changes, and you know it works. And you know, this work that you guys do are really impacting lives, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. Bill, would you like to bring it to a landing?
Well, you know, we want to, first of all, reach out to you and give you our gratitude for all the work that you're doing out there. You have been impacting so many people's lives, and we so appreciate you and your seminar and your workshop and what you brought to the world. Thank you all. There is so much to Cognomovement. You'll see a lot of it at World Cognomovement Day, but even that is only just a small fraction of what is possible. If you want more beyond that, cognomovement.com, and you'll see all kinds of resources, including National Institutes of Health published peer-reviewed evidence of all the specific moves that we do. So all of that is there. It's all evidence-based.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Liz, thank you again for, you know, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. I know it works because, you know, it's time for us to take ownership. And once we open up the doors to receiving and doing our homework, right? This is like doing a little bit of homework and opening up this door of many possibilities. And so I thank you both for the work that you do, and thank you for coming on. And thank you everyone for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tortorone. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.